In Steventown, New York, 200 carbon fiber discs spin inside vacuum chambers at 16,000 RPM, absorbing and releasing grid power in under 4 seconds. No lithium, no degradation chemistry, no fire risk. This is flywheel energy storage, and it has been quietly running parts of the American grid for over a decade. But before you believe it's about to replace your home battery, there's a number the marketing rarely mentions: how fast that spinning disc loses its charge sitting still. Let's find out what this technology actually does and doesn't. What's actually spinning in that vacuum flywheel energy storage system, or FES, stores electricity as kinetic energy rather than chemical energy. A motor accelerates a rotor in modern systems, often a carbon fiber composite cylinder rather than the steel of earlier designs, to extremely high rotational speeds, typically 20,000 to over 50,000 RPM, according to the Wikipedia-cited technical literature on flywheel energy storage and confirmed across peer-reviewed engineering sources. The rotor spins inside a sealed vacuum enclosure to eliminate air resistance, and it's suspended by magnetic bearings, either active systems that use electromagnets with real-time control, or passive systems using permanent magnets, so there's no physical contact and therefore no mechanical friction wearing the bearing down over time. The amount of energy a flywheel can store follows a simple physical relationship. It scales with the mass of the rotor and with the square of its rotational speed. That squared relationship is why engineers have spent decades chasing higher RPM rather than simply building heavier rotors. Doubling the spin rate quadruples the stored energy, while doubling the mass only doubles it. This is also why carbon fiber became the material of choice for fast response systems. It's strong enough to survive the enormous centrifugal forces at 20,000 plus RPM while weighing a fraction of an equivalent steel rotor, letting engineers push rotational speed higher without the structure tearing itself apart. To release the stored energy, the same motor reverses into generator mode. The spinning rotor drives the generator, converting rotational momentum back into electricity, and the rotor slows down as it discharges. There is no chemical reaction happening anywhere in this process, just a mass-changing speed. The efficiency numbers are genuinely strong and well documented. Research published via ScienceDirect's engineering literature confirms that flywheel systems using magnetic bearings and vacuum enclosures can reach mechanical efficiency up to 97%, with round-trip efficiency electricity back out around 85%. A 2026 technical review by Anybolt similarly documents round-trip efficiencies of 85 to 90% for modern systems. Cycle life is where flywheels separate themselves most dramatically from any chemical battery. DOE project documentation for Beacon Power's Hazel Spindle plant confirms the flywheels are rated for more than 150,000 full charge-discharge cycles at 100% depth of discharge, with no measurable energy degradation over that life, and are built to last 20 years or more with virtually no mechanical maintenance. The number nobody puts in the headline here is the limitation that every breathless goodbye batteries video skips past. Flywheels leak energy even when they're just sitting there spinning, doing nothing. This is called self-discharge, or standby loss, and it is the single biggest reason flywheels have never become a mainstream home battery replacement. A peer-reviewed analysis of standby losses in flywheel energy storage systems published via ResearchGate modeled rundown losses at 5% of stored energy lost per hour. A 2013 documented overview on Wikipedia's flywheel storage power system entry states that as of that year, the best engineered systems could limit losses to roughly 5% per day, but other technical sources, including a U.S. patent filing on minimal loss flywheel batteries, describe standard flywheel batteries dissipating their stored energy in under an hour due to high idling losses, calling this far worse than self-discharge exhibited by electrochemical batteries. Shaper Energy's engineering overview confirms flywheels exhibit high power loss due to self-discharge as one of the technology's defining limitations. To put a 5% per hour standby loss in perspective, a flywheel charged at 6 p.m. with no load attached would have lost roughly 70% of its stored energy by 6 a.m. the next morning, purely from sitting idle. A lithium iron phosphate battery, by contrast, loses roughly 2 to 3% of its charge per month in storage. This self-discharge problem is exactly why traditional flywheel designs were built for short duration, high-power applications, seconds to roughly 15 minutes of discharge. The design window Beacon Power's carbon fiber Gen 4 units were built around. A DOE-published technical report on flywheel manufacturer Amber Kinetics confirms this wasn't an accident of one company's engineering. Flywheel energy storage technology has traditionally focused on storage durations ranging from seconds to minutes, precisely because of this self-discharge problem. And because the lightweight carbon fiber rotors that made fast response flywheels affordable never became cost-effective for longer storage windows. That same DOE report documents the industry's one real attempt to break past the 15-minute ceiling. Amber Kinetics abandoned carbon fiber entirely and built a flywheel around a 2-ton steel rotor instead. The Tradioa's straightforward steel is heavier and spins slower than carbon fiber, which increases self-discharge losses relative to stored energy more slowly, allowing a 4-hour discharge duration instead of minutes. The company's M32 unit, an 8 kW/32 kW system, is described by Amber Kinetics and confirmed in Energy Storage.news coverage of a 2017 Enel pilot as the first commercially deployed long-duration flywheel of its kind. It is a genuinely different engineering approach from the Beacon Power model, not just a bigger version of the same machine, and it's worth knowing this category exists, because it shows the 15-minute limit is a design choice tied to carbon fiber, not a hard physical ceiling on flywheel technology as a whole. The second limiting number is energy density. Shaper Energy's technical overview puts flywheel energy density at 5 to 30 watt-hours per kilogram. Compare that to lithium iron phosphate batteries, which Wikipedia's technical entry on the chemistry documents at 150 to 205 watt-hours per kilogram at the cell level, with CATL's most advanced 2024 LFP cells reaching 205 W/kg. That means pound for pound, a lithium battery can store 5 to 10 times more usable energy than a flywheel of the same weight, and a 2-ton steel rotor storing just 32 kWh, as in the Amber Kinetics design, illustrates the Tradioa directly. A flywheel sized to power a home through a multi-hour outage would be dramatically larger, heavier, and more expensive than the equivalent battery bank. Where flywheels have actually proven themselves, none of this means flywheels are a failed technology. It means they solve a specific problem, and that problem is not store a house's worth of electricity overnight. The clearest proof case is Beacon Power's Steventown, New York facility, a 20 megawatt, 5 megawatt-hour flywheel plant built around 200 individual units, each rated at 100 kW and 25 kW. According to Beacon's own published history and DOE project documentation, the plant began commercial operation in 2011, built at a total cost of approximately $69 million, according to Beacon's own SEC filings, with $43 million backed by a DOE loan guarantee. DOE documentation confirms the technology achieved system availability above 97% higher than the average for conventional generators performing the same frequency regulation duty. The flywheels can respond to a grid signal in under 4 seconds, roughly 100 times faster than a traditional gas-fired generator, because there's no combustion to spin up, just a rotor that's already spinning. Instantly available to absorb or release power. This is frequency regulation, the constant, second-by-second balancing act grid operators perform to keep the grid at exactly 60 Hz. It is not bulk energy storage. The hardware worked exactly as designed. The business model around it did not survive contact with the market. Beacon Power Corp filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy on October 30, 2011, just months after Steventown reached full commercial operation. According to Slate's 2014 reporting on the company's eventual turnaround, Beacon generated only $2 million in revenue across the first 9 months of 2011, while owing $8 million on its federal loan, the result of frequency regulation market prices falling steadily through 2010 and 2011, eroding the plant's primary revenue stream just as it came fully online. Beacon's own SEC quarterly filing for that period confirms the severity of the damage. The company reported approximately $63 million in losses for the 9 months ending September 30, 2011, including a roughly $42 million non-cash impairment charge tied mostly to the Steventown facility. Separate reporting from Greentech Media at the time noted that Beacon had marked the plant's book value down from $41.9 million to just $12.6 million, about 1/5 of its original $69 million construction cost, reflecting the market's collapsed confidence in the business, not a failure of the machinery itself. Private equity firm Rockland Capital bought the company's assets in 2012 for a reported $30.5 million and built a second plant in Hazel Township, Pennsylvania, funded partly by a $24 million DOE Smart Grid grant. In an ironic twist documented by Breaking Energy's coverage of the bankruptcy, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission issued Order 755, a new rule designed to pay fast-responding storage technologies like flywheels a premium over slower fossil fuel generators on the very same day the Department of Energy informed Beacon it was cutting OA further loan disbursements. Beacon filed for bankruptcy 9 days later. Former CEO Bill Kapp estimated the new first rule could eventually double or triple the revenue flywheels earned per megawatt hour, but the regulatory fix arrived just days too late to save the original company, even though it helped make the Rockland-owned successor viable. The broader sector has not fared better since. Industry coverage tracking flywheel storage companies into 2026 notes that competitors Pentadyne and Active Power both eventually went through distressed sales or liquidation. The pattern across more than 2 decades is consistent. Flywheel hardware repeatedly performs to spec in the field, while the companies built to sell it have struggled to build a durable business around it. That pattern hasn't stopped new entrants from trying. Smaller venture-backed companies, including Revterra and Netick, are currently developing newer flywheel designs aimed at grid stabilization and EV-fast charging support. With Netick specifically working with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory's National Lab of the Rockies and the Electric Power Research Institute on-field validation as of 2026. None of these newer companies yet have anything close to Beacon's decade-plus of independently documented, grid operator verified runtime, which is exactly why Steventown remains the benchmark case for what this technology can actually deliver, rather than what a pitch deck claims it will. The home application, what's real and what isn't for residential use. The honest picture is narrower than the marketing suggests, but it isn't nothing. A handful of smaller companies have pursued residential scale or near residential flywheel products specifically as a complement to, not a replacement for, a battery bank. Shaper Energy's technical overview documents one such design, the Velkus flywheel. Rated to store 15 kW, enough for roughly 1 day of average home use at better than 80% efficiency, with a system priced around $6,000 or about $1,333 per kW of capacity. That price point is dramatically higher than installed lithium iron phosphate storage, which EnergyStorage.news reported reaching approximately 125 kW for large containerized systems by 2024, and well under that for residential scale FPACs. At that price gap, a flywheel competing purely on cost per kW of storage loses badly against a battery, which is exactly why no serious flywheel company markets its product that way. Where flywheel battery hybrids do make engineering sense is in handling sudden, sharp power spikes that put real stress on a battery's chemistry, an EV-fast charger kicking on, a heat pump compressor starting, a workshop power tool drawing a sudden surge. Lithium-based batteries degrade faster when forced to deliver very high current in short bursts, a phenomenon driven by internal heating and lithium plating on the anode that accelerates over repeated high current cycles. A flywheel sitting in front of the battery bank can absorb that sudden current spike, instantly discharging its own stored energy in milliseconds while the battery ramps up more gradually behind it, never experiencing the harshest part of the demand curve. A 2020 academic study on flywheel battery hybrid systems for islanded solar plus diesel residential setups, published via ResearchGate, modeled exactly this combination and found that pairing a flywheel with a battery bank reduced the maximum charging current demanded of the battery, easing the chemical and thermal stress that shortens battery lifespan. This is the legitimate version of the flywheel handles the spike, battery handles the duration pitch. It's a real engineering strategy, just a more modest one than goodbye batteries implies. The flywheel in this kind of system isn't sized to replace the battery's storage capacity at all. It's sized to protect the battery from the specific kind of abuse that shortens its working life, which is a fundamentally different design goal than the one implied by a marketing campaign promising unlimited electricity from a spinning disk. So is the spinning disk real? Yes, and the physics behind it is some of the most elegant in all of energy storage. A flywheel genuinely can reach 97% mechanical efficiency, genuinely can survive 150,000 plus full cycles without degrading, genuinely has no fire risk, no rare earth mining footprint in its core mechanism, and genuinely can respond to a power demand in a fraction of a second. None of that is exaggerated. What's exaggerated is the idea that this makes lithium batteries obsolete for a home, a technology that loses a meaningful share of its stored energy every hour it sits idle. And that stores 5 to 10 times less energy per pound than a modern LFP battery, was never going to be the thing that powers your refrigerator through a 6-hour outage, not without abandoning the lightweight carbon fiber design that makes flywheels fast and cheap in the first place, the way Amber Kinetics did, with steel to buy a few extra hours of duration at the cost of size and weight. It was built and proven at Steventown over more than a decade of grid operation to do something batteries are comparatively bad at: absorb and release enormous bursts of power, instantly, over and over, without wearing out. The real story isn't goodbye batteries. It's a 250-year-old principle, a spinning mass holding momentum re-engineered with vacuum chambers and magnetic bearings to do one job extremely well, while batteries keep doing the job they're better suited for. If a residential hybrid system ever reaches your garage, it will almost certainly look like the Velcus concept or the 2020 hybrid research model, a flywheel absorbing the spikes, a battery bank carrying the night. Anyone selling you a flywheel as a full replacement for your battery wall is leaving out the one number that matters most: how fast it goes quiet when nobody's drawing power from it.